This morning, I have the pleasure of introducing our opening keynote speaker, Diana Goodwin. I have to tell you, as I was reading through Diana's bio, I couldn't help but feel a little inadequate this morning. Diana is CEO and founder of AquaMobile, the largest on-demand at-home swim school in North America. AquaMobile uses cutting-edge technology that allows customers to go online, key in their pool address, and be matched up with a certified instructor who will travel to their home. But here's the thing, Diana started AquaMobile at the age of 19 on a shoestring budget, and she's grown her business internationally, becoming a leader in her industry. Diana has been profiled in many print publications, including Forbes, and has won numerous business awards, including Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year and the 100,000 Small Business Challenge. Today, Diana will share her story and provide tips on how bootstrapping helped her optimize limited resources, allowing her to grow and thrive in a changing marketplace. Please join me in welcoming Diana to the stage.
It was a beautiful spring day in May 2015. I woke up, I put on a blue dress, and I headed to the CBC studios in downtown Toronto. Once I got there, they did my hair and makeup, and then they put me in a room where I sat alone for hours with a box of Tim Hortons donuts. Eventually, though, someone came and got me and told me it was go time. So they put a microphone on me, and they sent me to the top of a metal staircase. Once the producer said go, I knew the cameras were rolling. It was eerily silent, except for the sound of my shoes as I walked across the metal platform. My legs were shaking profusely, and I was so paranoid that I was going to faceplant in front of the dragons. But I finally made my way down to the bottom of the stairs, and I looked up, and I was staring at 5 icons of the Canadian business world, the dragons. I was extremely honored to have been invited to pitch on CBC's award-winning program, Dragon's Den, a show with over 1 million viewers per week.
What do you think the full potential is?
I don't see why we can't go north of $30 million.
You're a one-woman show.
Yeah.
Very impressive.
My kind of girl.
And so, after lots of practice and agonizing over the smallest details, my name's Diana Goodwin, and I'm from Toronto, Ontario. I'm the president and founder of AquaMobile Swim School. Today, I'm seeking a $200,000 investment in exchange for a 10% equity stake in my company. After spending over an hour in the hot seat, here's what happened.
You know, I do a lot of business in the States, and I'm also in Mexico now. We do have an office in Dallas if you wanted to work out of there, so I'll make you an offer of $200,000 for 10%.
10%. Thank you, Jim.
I do believe that you do have 2 great offers on the table. I'm going to be out.
Thank you. Thanks.
I think the deal's great. I think you're great. I don't know how I can't better Jim's deal.
No.
And
You can offer
so
the same.
I don't know what to do.
We can do the deal together. And then you get 2 dragons.
Okay. I mean, what we could do, you could have 2 dragons for 15% or 1 dragon for a 10% equity deal.
Yeah.
Are you in on that?
Yeah, that's
What
fine.
would you like to do?
So what did I do with 1 dragon offering me exactly what I'd asked for and 2 dragons willing to join forces for 15% of my company? This is a very hard decision, but Jim has given me, exactly what I've asked for, and Jim, I think you would, make a great partner.
Thank you.
And so,
Great.
yes,
Let's do it.
I'd love to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle and Joe.
You did a great
Thank
job.
you so much.
Well done, Diana.
Invest in people, that's what I do.
Thank you.
And you're a great one.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Well done, Diana.
Great person.
So I was extremely excited to have been offered a deal by such an amazing dragon. But a lot happens after the cameras stop rolling. Not everything is as it seems on TV. But I'll get back to that in a little while. In the meantime, I ended up getting more publicity than I ever dreamed of. I ended up being featured in publications including Inc., Forbes, Huffington Post, Financial Post, the Globe and Mail, and Techvibes, to name a few. And this was a huge deal because it hadn't been that long before where nobody even knew what AquaMobile was. In fact, when people would ask me what I did, they would look at me with blank stares, followed by questions like, oh, is there actually a market for that? And do you make any money off of that? But there is a market for it, and I do make money off of it. But I must admit, when I first started, I didn't even see the full potential. I'm still surprised at how far the business has come, given that I started with a single $3,000 grant from the government. And I was able to turn that $3,000 and go from $0 in revenue to over 7 figures in annual revenue. I've never taken any outside investment for the company. I've always just reinvested the profits back in the company to grow it that way. And I wouldn't have it any other way. This method of starting a business is known as bootstrapping. So what is bootstrapping? Well, the official definition is to get oneself or something into or out of a situation using existing resources. So whether bootstrapping is a willful choice or your only option, today I'm here to show you that bootstrapping can act as a lever to really help you think outside the box. So in my case, bootstrapping helped me to optimize limited resources, be at my most creative, and focus on growing the bottom line. So growing up as an entrepreneur, that's me, by the way, in the center of the picture from elementary school. But growing up as an entrepreneur, I was one of those kids that was always trying to start a side business, whether it was running a garage sale, trying to sell off my parents' stuff, running a candy stand, a jewelry store, or I even tried launching a school newspaper. That being said, these businesses weren't going to get me very far. So at the age of 17, I ended up taking a job at a local community center pool where I was teaching swimming lessons. And I would end up teaching 8 to 10 kids every half an hour. And I would see how some kids would struggle with the group setting, and it would really take a hit on their confidence when some kids are progressing and other kids are not. This is where I decided that I was going to start a different type of swimming school. And so at the age of 19, my idea was to start a company which I ended up calling Swim for Life Aquatics. And basically, I would go to clients' home swimming pools, and I would teach them in a private, comfortable environment and give them the one-on-one attention that they needed. So what I did is I wrote a business plan, and I submitted it to the government for a summer company grant. And that's where I got the $3,000 from. It was actually free money from the government. And you might be wondering, what did I do with that money? Well, first of all, I did everything myself. So I was marketing, I was the swim instructor, I was the accountant, I did everything. And this was also in a time before the internet and websites was a huge thing. So I actually, I printed off flyers and business cards like what you see up on the slide, and I would go to people who I knew had home pools, and I would try and get them to buy my swim lesson services. So basically, if you look at the logo, that was my very first logo that I had designed that summer, and then my very first business card. And those are 2 of my very first students that I taught. So I ended up running Swim for Life throughout university, and I wasn't looking to make it a big thing at the time. It was really just to make a few dollars for myself. But eventually, over those years at university, I did end up bringing on a few swim instructors, and we were teaching a few students. The good thing is, my main expense at that time was actually the cost of the swim instructors. So I was able to grow the business without a lot of overhead, which was great. So I was making money right away. But the time had come for me to graduate. I graduated with a commerce degree from University of Toronto, and I got hired on by a management consulting firm named Bain & Company. So I was working there, I was working long hours, I was traveling a lot, I was learning a lot, but I was also burning out pretty quickly. The one ray of light that I had during this period was that I still kept Swim for Life Aquatics going on the side. So I only had a couple hours here and there to dedicate to Swim for Life, but having that showed me just how much more I enjoyed that experience than my corporate job. And I would even get together once in a while with another friend who was not happy in her corporate job, and we would brainstorm ideas and try and figure out, okay, what can we do? What business can we create so that we can get out of our corporate jobs? And we would do all of this, and then I had a eureka moment. I realized, what am I doing spending all my time trying to think about a new business idea when I have this business that I've been neglecting and it's still been growing? And that's when I decided that I was going to focus my attention on Swim for Life and take it to the next level and go full-time with it. So at that time, what I did is I did my MBA at Kellogg School of Management, which is at Northwestern University in Chicago. And I used that year, while I was doing my MBA, to take the business to the next level. So what I did is I took a lot of courses that focused on allowing me to build a business. So I did a market research course, I did a business plan writing course where I got to work with a team of super smart other MBA students, and we worked on building the plan for what would end up becoming AquaMobile. Aside from the courses I was taking, what was even more valuable was the networking that I was doing outside of the class. So I spent a lot of my free time meeting with other entrepreneurs, other students, and other professors. And the insights and advice that I got during that time period was invaluable. This was also the time when I knew I wanted to rebrand. This was a big market. There's 10 million homes with swimming pools in North America. But in my mind, up until this time, I had just been thinking about this as a regional business. And so aside from taking it to the next level, I also needed to think about rebranding. And that's where we decided on the name AquaMobile. Now, the naming process, as simple as it may sound, it actually took me months to come up with something that a large enough group of people actually liked, and a lot of people did not even like the name AquaMobile, and also to find something that didn't already have trademarks or have the domain names already taken. But we ended up with AquaMobile, and I actually also designed this logo using a site called CrowdSpring. This was one way that I was starting this with nothing, so I didn't have a lot of money, and CrowdSpring was a great way where you put up a prize. In my case, it was $250, and I had a couple hundred designers submit logos for AquaMobile, and this ended up being the winning logo. And as you can see, back then we even had a tagline. The next thing I did was I needed a website. Again, didn't have a ton of money, so I used a website called elance.com, and I found a web designer based in India who developed this website for $300. And I must say, we got a lot of mileage out of this $300 because we ended up using this WordPress site for over 2 years, I believe, before we switched to a more modern design. At this time when I was first starting out, the booking process for customers to book swim instructors was still very manual. I didn't have the tech platform built out yet. And that's because this was at a time where Uber was just in its infancy. There wasn't a lot of on-demand type services. So there were no boxed solutions that I could just pay a company, a certain amount of money per month and utilize their software to schedule and book. Because most of those systems at the time were designed for companies that had one location or maybe just a few locations. But there wasn't any type of business yet that had, technically hundreds, thousands of locations with each client being its own location. So that's where I knew I'm not a tech person, but I had to do a lot of research and find out, okay, What do I need? What can I utilize to develop a tech platform and be able to scale this business across Canada and the US? So I did find a developer. This is a screenshot from the very first tech platform that I used in conjunction with the WordPress site. It cost me $5,000, which pretty bare bones, not much to the system. But I will say the developer disappeared before he even finished developing the website. He didn't even collect his final 25% payment. He literally just disappeared off the face of the earth. That being said, the platform was developed enough that I could get through the first season of business, which was great. And it also helped us achieve an important milestone, which was getting our very first US client. So this is an email. One day I woke up, and this was a screenshot of the email that was in the inbox, basically, that showed that we'd had our very first client had purchased 4 lessons with instructor Calvin in Florida. So this was a very exciting moment. And it's hard to think that now, just a few years ago, that was our very first sale, and now US is 70% of our revenue. Another important thing, even though that could have been a very low point, having the developer disappear, I was still able to use the system and learn from it, learn what would work for my clients, learn what would work for my team, so that we could innovate and make the next platform better. So I ended up finding another set of developers, a development company that was based in California, but used developers more in Eastern Europe to help keep the costs down. And this platform was going to cost $12,000. So as you can see, it's a little more user-friendly, it's a little more fun than the last site. And huge delays with this, which is a common problem that I know a lot of small businesses and startups have when dealing with developers. The project ended up taking much longer than expected, but it finally was complete. And from that point, we kept innovating, and the business kept growing. But as the business kept growing, I knew we needed a better tech platform, a platform that was going to be more flexible, more customizable, and also faster, because this system was starting to get slow. And to give you an idea, if a customer was booking something like 10 swim lessons, which of course we want them to book more, it would actually sometimes take over 10 minutes to book, which was way too long. That was not going to work for the next level of the business. So this is where I knew I needed to make a really big investment. And at this time, when this decision came, we were probably at around 200 swim instructors and maybe $250,000 in revenue. So the decision to take the platform to the next level, which was going to cost like $100,000, that was the lowest quote I got. It was a huge investment, but it was an investment that I knew I needed to make, even though my budget at the time was only $60,000. But I did a number of things to help bridge the gap between what my budget was and what the asking price was. So I worked with the developers to make a payment plan for the difference, and I also tapped into some government grants that would help subsidize some of the development work that was happening. So this is the system today. This is what the customer interface looks like. Oh, actually, one other thing I should say is we're now at the point where we have brought development in-house completely. Shameless plug, if there's any full-stack developers in the room, we are hiring one more. But because we've been growing and we have brought the development in-house, it has allowed us to leverage a lot more government grants that are out there. Some of the best government grants that are out there will cover 60 to 80% of your development costs. And happy to talk more about all of that stuff in Q&A as well. So this is the booking process. So all a client has to do is enter in their pool address and their start date. And then, depending on their region, they're shown a bunch of different pricing and package options, and that all varies by region. From there, they get to see the real-time availability of the swim instructors who are able to travel to their specific home pool. And you can see the blue represents kind of days where there's time slots available, and then you can click on a blue square and you can see the actual start times. You're also able to see each of the instructors, what their picture looks like, their bio, their certifications, their specialties. So the client can go on and look for themselves and decide, okay, what instructor do I think will be the best fit for either myself or for my children, and go from there. Or they can call our customer service team, who are all former swim instructors, and ask them and have them help pick the right swim instructor. So I think it's really important that aside from just tech, you also have that human element, because not everyone's comfortable doing things on their own using the tech platform. Then there's just the checkout screen, followed by a thank you screen. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what is AquaMobile's competitive advantage? And I would say AquaMobile doesn't just have one competitive advantage. We work really hard at having multiple competitive advantages, because it's really easy for a competitor to copy one thing that you're doing. It's much harder for them to copy you if you're doing multiple things. So for example, at AquaMobile, aside from our technology platform, which we're continually improving on and investing in, we also create a lot of really great content, whether it's in blog articles or video content for our consumers. We also have a stellar customer service team that's there to help. We have over 1,500 swim instructors. We're constantly innovating, and we're also international now. So it's not uncommon for a customer who's maybe based in Toronto, but then they've got a place that they travel to in Florida for the winter to use our services in both locations. So that further strengthens the AquaMobile brand when you're able to do things like that. Where are we now? These are some of the faces of AquaMobile swim instructors. We have over 1,500 certified, experienced, and insured swim instructors, and we now operate across Canada and in 25 states in the US. One of our missions is, aside from the lessons that we teach through our instructors, is to help, is our 1 Million Swimmers campaign. And the goal is to keep 1 million swimmers, kids, water safe through the use of fun songs and games. So we've created a free online resource that anyone can access, whether they pay for our services or not. That's aside from the point. We just want to reach as many people as possible. So here's a little clip from one of our videos.
Swimming, swimming in the swimming pool. If you're alone and on your own, you must follow this rule. Don't go near it until adults with you, and then we can have fun and play 'cause someone's watching you. Ramp in, ramp out, use the stairway too when we swim.
So another thing that started to happen is AquaMobile has started to get recognized for the achievements that we've had in bootstrapping. So some of the awards have been from the Toronto Region Board of Trade, Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year, an Impact Showcase Award, which was at the United Nations in New York, as well as being up for a Notable Award. Oh yeah, back to Dragon's Den. So when we last left off, I'd been given an offer and accepted an offer from Jim on air. But what you don't know is that I didn't end up taking the deal with Jim. The reason being, when this all happened, it was in the middle of AquaMobile's busy season, and I asked Jim and his team if we could put the subsequent due diligence process on hold until after the busy season was complete. Jim and his team was great, and they said no problem. But in the meantime, AquaMobile ended up winning the Globe and Mail TELUS Small Business Challenge, which came with a $100,000 prize. So this was in 2015. There were over 3,000 entries, and AquaMobile was lucky enough to be the top winner. So at that point in time, I had this $100,000 that cost me no equity in my company, and it could be invested right back into AquaMobile without having to give up any of the equity. That being said, Jim says the door is always open, so you never know. I still think we'd make a great team. Before I go today, I want to leave you with a few important bootstrapping tips. Number one, make sure you have a strong vision and know your business inside and out. If you can clearly articulate your business to yourself, then you'll be able to clearly articulate your business to key stakeholders, such as investors, customers, and employees. And once you have them on board, that's what you need to take your business to the next level. The second thing, be mindful of your costs and look for alternatives. It is very easy to blow through money if you're not careful. There's expensive ways to do things, and then there's more frugal ways. So I encourage you to look at some of the other things, like what I did when I was using different crowdsourcing platforms, for example. And aside from that, we are lucky to live in a country where there's a lot of support for small businesses and startups. So I encourage you to also look at some of the grant and funding options that are available. And I'm very knowledgeable on those, so happy to talk to you during Q&A about that. And last but not least, network. Do not be afraid to ask for help from people in different areas of expertise and leverage that. I would not be where I am today. AquaMobile would not be where it is today if I hadn't tapped into my network. And I still continue to tap into that network, and I'm always learning. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Learn from someone else who has done it so that you don't make the same mistakes. At the end of the day, it's your passion that will drive your business forward. Owning 100% of your company can be a very powerful thing, and so can bootstrapping. But it's not for everyone. It depends on a number of things, such as the nature of your business, how fast you want to scale, and your desire for control. Just know there is a lot you can do as a bootstrapper if you tap into the network of resources and expertise that is out there. Okay. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions at this point that you may have about AquaMobile, about how I started the business, any resources I may have used along the way.
I really enjoyed your talk, thank you.
Thank you.
Because your business deals with children and also pools, I'm guessing insurance was a real challenge for you. How did that impact your bootstrapping?
Yeah, so we do have two different insurance policies, one for the Canadian operations and then one for the US operations. I think also, I was able to get insurance, no problem, and, knock on wood, never had to use it. I think it's a matter of doing your research out there. One example, there was one policy that I had in place for a year, and then the next year I tried a different broker, and my insurance cost dropped in half. So definitely do your research and talk to a number of different brokers, because you can definitely find policies that are just equally as good, but at a lower price.
Diana, you mentioned that government grants could cover anywhere from 60 to 80%. Can you elaborate a bit on that point?
Yeah, sure. So keep in mind, a lot of these grants, they're there to help a business grow. It's not, it's also there to create jobs, and that's one of the great things that we've been able to do as we've leveraged. We've been able to grow faster than we would have been able to without the grants, but then also help employ people as well. So some of the grants in terms of web development stuff there's one called, it's known as SHRED, so SRED. That is, it's to help kind of research things. So it doesn't have to just be for web development. It can also be in areas such as manufacturing. And it's there to help you innovate and to learn. So you don't necessarily get the money for succeeding the first time. You get it for trying and innovating. And that's kind of what the government rewards. I suggest if you do go for that one that you use a company that specializes in filing, because it is a tricky, there's a lot to it, the filing. Another one that we've utilized, it's called IRAP. So that's to help fund web development projects. And that's one that as the business has grown, we've been able to tap into more and more, because they don't, for IRAP, you need to be a business that's already generating revenue and can show a trajectory of growth. And then that's where the government will further help you. So those are two of the big ones on the development side.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
How did you build and grow your instructor base?
That took time. I mean, it was not easy at first. We started in Ontario, and then Florida was the first US market, and I must say that the tactics that we used in Ontario were not the same tactics that worked in the US. So it was a lot of trial and error, and I mean, we now have an entire recruiting team that's dedicated to continually year-round recruiting instructors. So I mean, we're at the point where we're always looking for instructors, and we have to get creative. You have to get creative with different ways to reach them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the inspiring talk this morning.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask, how did you increase your customer base from 0 to whatever you are right now? How did you increase? What sort of marketing did you do? What sort of?
It took time. It didn't happen overnight. I wish I could say it did. But I think for us, so we tested a lot of things, like especially when I entered into the Florida market, I tested all sorts of things from obviously digital marketing, different online ads, AdWords, trying to build, search engine optimization. But I also tried a bunch of on-the-ground techniques, visiting local daycares, condo buildings, schools, things like that. And for us, what worked best was actually digital marketing, which was great because it's much easier to control from one location, which meant, we didn't have to have representatives necessarily like doing the marketing on the ground in each of these regions. So, I mean, digital marketing has been huge and it continues to be huge. So it's a lot of testing, it's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of different digital marketing techniques you can tap into. Some work well, others don't. And I think it depends on the business.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
After hiring so many teachers, how do you maintain the control, how do you maintain quality control of your lessons?
Mm-hmm. So there's a number of things that we're doing because that's a huge thing for us. And I mean, the good thing is that's, not really, quality is not a complaint that we get, which is great. And there's a few reasons for that. One of them is when we're hiring, we're looking for instructors that have a minimum of 2 to 3 years swim instructing experience. And when we're putting them through, there's a multi-step interview process. And so that really helps weed them out if they're not at a certain level. And we can make sure that they have that certain level of experience. So that's a big thing. I mean, it's a double-edged sword because at the same time, we've had to turn away tons of swim instructors that aren't up to par. But it's necessary to maintain the quality. Another thing we do, though, it's also engagement. It's not just about bringing the swim instructors on. It's making sure that they have proper resources. We've got a forum that's very active, and so I know it's very common. Instructors will say, "Hey, I'm having this problem. I've tried everything, and this one student doesn't want to put their face in the water. Does anyone have suggestions?" And there's like 10, 20 instructors that are coming to their aid to give suggestions. So it's not just about the recruiting, it's also, and we've continued to develop this, it's what you're doing to nurture that relationship as you continue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Diana. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your success so far. Your presentation showed that your progress was pretty consistent and didn't show too many hiccups along the road. Now, a lot of entrepreneurs can tell you that there's always some sort of hiccup and possibly a time period of depression or, these kind of things. Not saying that you went through this, but was there a time that maybe you felt there was insurmountable challenges, and how did you overcome those? Was there any point in time where you just felt overwhelmed?
I'm lucky in that there's definitely ups and downs. I'm lucky that we haven't had any that's just this insurmountable thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm lucky that, surrounded by a great team that when something happens, we pull together and come up with a solution. And it's just knowing that, there's been times where I've been working crazy hours and trying to get through something, and it's just knowing that on the other side of that, there's better times ahead, and so just kind of keeping that hope. And so we've been lucky that there hasn't been anything to date. And I think for me it was also helpful that the time where I did Swim for Life Aquatics, that was also like a testing period too. So it's, you know, it's not like I had to start, when I decided to dedicate myself full time to what was then AquaMobile, I'd already tested a bit with Swim for Life Aquatics, so it's not like I had to start from ground zero. So that's also helpful, because it's not like I fully gave up a job and I'm now in the hole. And so, you know, that's always a nice little buffer. If you can find the time to do it and start laying some of the groundwork and testing things out, it's easier to make that jump into full-time entrepreneurship.
Put your hands together for Diana. Thank you very much.